And to understand it better, to get a better grasp on this, we've invited Mark Krikorian back on the show. It's been a few days, I guess, since you've been here, Mark, the executive director for the Center for Immigration Studies. I'm glad you're here. And Mark, you come to this with a unique family perspective. Is it wrong for me to say that your family understands the immigration process, seeing how your grandparents came here from another place?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are in that situation. The problem often is that there's a lot of people who say, well, my grandparents came through Ellis Island, therefore I know everything about immigration. And so, frankly, you don't have to have grandparents who came as immigrants to be, to know about the issue and to have informed opinions on it. So I'd say, look, I mean, I'm proud of my grandparents, but that's not. You should be. You can come by immigration views honestly, even if your, ancestors came over on the Mayflower, like Barack Obama's did.
Okay. I appreciate that. I was just trying to make a connection because I'm guessing that your grandparents, like my grandparents who actually came from Ireland to this country, that they talked about that, about the conscious decision to come here, and that it was a very prideful thing for them to have made the decision to have come here legally and then to have essentially skin in the game in America, where it seems like the current crisis we're facing is one that doesn't have that kind of approach to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very different world, I mean, honestly, I don't really think the immigrants are all that different from 100 or 200 years ago. We're different. We have a totally different, I mean, the world is smaller, so we need immigration laws in a way that we didn't centuries ago when, frankly, the oceans limited immigration. It was hard to get here, and the country was empty anyway. And so conditions have changed. And there's also been, other changes. We have a welfare state now. That didn't exist when your grandparents and mine came here. We have our institutions like schools that are supposed to assimilate and Americanize people. Have you seen what a school curriculum is like lately? They're not teaching kids to love America and that George Washington's the father of their country. It's terrible. So the point is that I don't really think the immigrants themselves are all that different. Some are good, some are bad. They're kind of like anybody else. What's different is us in good ways and bad ways, but we're different in a way that makes immigration very different from what it was when people's grandparents or whatever great-grandparents came here.
Those are great and very fair points to make. Now, let's get into the tariff discussion. Donald Trump has said that on day one, among some of the instant executive orders he's planning on signing and releasing, deals with trying to shut down the illegal immigration across our northern and southern borders by slapping a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico. And then as sort of an ancillary tariff, he said to China, you're going to get an additional 10% if you guys don't stop the fentanyl shipments. And it's not fentanyl so much as the ingredients to make fentanyl. Let's get into this. Are these going to be inflationary tariffs?
Well, look, I'm not a trade guy, but there's enormous cost to illegal immigration. And if this gets them to get with the program and limit illegal immigration, then, in a sense, it's win-win. In other words, part of this is a negotiating tactic by the president. It's, it's telling them, if you don't limit illegal immigration, you don't control your own borders, you're going to pay a price, because we're paying a price already for out-of-control illegal immigration. And if Mexico and Canada come to the table, and for Canada, it's more a security issue. The numbers are much bigger than they used to be, but they're still small of illegal immigration over the border compared to Mexico. But it's actually arguably more dangerous because there are the folks coming over the border from Canada are more likely to be, from the Middle East or people with specific bad intent. So the point is, it matters. This is a tactic the president used the first time he was in office. It worked. And this is an interesting point, the Biden administration has tried to get, and succeeded to some degree, some cooperation from Mexico. But you know what they did? They didn't threaten Mexico. They've bribed Mexico. They've been paying Mexico to limit the number of illegal aliens making it north to our border. And Trump is basically saying, no, look, we're not paying for this. You guys are going to fulfill your responsibilities, or we're going to hit you where it hurts. That's much more likely to work and much more responsible in the sense of more in the interest, because we're not paying them. We're getting them to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. The carrot versus the stick on this one.
Exactly.
Biden dangling the carrot and Trump wielding the stick by saying we're going to hurt you economically. I also, and I'm kind of extrapolating this out, Mark, to see if this makes sense to you. One of the things that that China and Mexico have been doing is preparing to, I guess, pose a serious threat to our automobile industry by building these massive BYD electric vehicle plants in China, in Canada, and then these Chinese electric vehicles will be sold into America, and they are really a cost cutter. They're reportedly to be in competition with like a Toyota Camry, a middle of the road car, middle range car, but at a cost of about $15,000. And if Donald Trump comes in and slaps a 25% tax on Mexico and an additional 10% tax on China, that's going to change that economic metric and possibly force China out of the automobile business in Mexico, which has an ancillary benefit to the American automobile economy, which is in dire need of some help right now. So Trump might be playing a little 4D chess here based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. Now, I don't know which of these or what degree of tariffs the president might keep in place if Mexico, for instance, cooperates and cracks down on illegal immigration. In other words, it may be we'll knock the tariff down, whatever, or we'll keep it only on the cars but not on anything else. I mean, this is what negotiating trade deals is about. It's just that the thing that President Trump brings to it is that he's not just thinking about the dollars and cents in trade. He's saying these tariffs are a tool to improve national security, which is to say border security, as opposed to, pretty much all earlier administrations they have trade discussions. Obviously, it's something they do all the time. Everybody does, but they're only thinking about the dollars and cents of the imports and exports, not how to use the tariff threats to get other countries to do what we want them to do.
I see what you're saying, and it's excellent breakdown. We're talking with Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies, and I know that you've talked about this in the past, and it is the concept of self-deportation. And do you think that the new border czar, I like to call Tom Homan the new sheriff in town, he was down at the border today in Texas. Do you think Tom Homan's presence is going to trigger some of the self-deportation you have talked about?
Well, that's clearly part of what he intends. In other words, he's telling people that you have a chance now, what's left now, 9 weeks or 10 weeks or something.
55 days. 55 days.
You have a chance to get home on your own. In other words, because that would be better even for the illegal immigrants. You pack up your stuff, put your affairs in order. You may be going home for Christmas anyway. Lots of people, especially from Mexico and Central America, do that. So go home for Christmas and don't come back. In other words, you don't get arrested. It's more dignified for you. But the alternative is January 20th, the party is over, and you need to sort of put that into your calculations. Obviously, what they're trying to do is get some number of people to leave on their own, and I think it'll work. The question is, how many? Who knows? There's been some reporting out of Springfield, Ohio. The place where all the Haitians are in Ohio, where supposedly they were eating the cats and dogs or whatever, that
Oh, yeah.
some people are already leaving. Now, some of them are going to sanctuary cities. In other words, they're going to like New York or whatever, where they figure they're safer. But apparently, and this is just reporting from, I think, The Guardian and also from CBS, that some people actually have left and gone to Canada already. So self-deportation can work. You just preferably need to make it, nationwide problem so that people won't be able to pick and choose which city or state they're in. The only realistic alternative will be to pack up and go home.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. But we do have a lot of sanctuary cities in many of these blue states around the country. And Denver has been in the spotlight of late. And obviously the East Coast, Boston, you're familiar with, and New York City. And if sanctuaries exist, it's going to be harder and harder for the deportations to go on. But I like the idea of self-deportations. It certainly takes the onus and expense off of us. Mark, I appreciate all of your time with us. Is there a place we should be following you? Is it Twitter X? Where is it?
Sure. Well, first of all, the center's website is cis.org, and we have new blog posts every day. All of our material is there. And for people who have a taste for snark and sarcasm, I am on Twitter, which is spelled X, but it's still pronounced Twitter as far as I can tell, at Mark S, as in Stephen, Mark S. Krikorian.
Mark S. Krikorian. And I have an addiction to snark, so I will be following you shortly, Mark. And apologies for mispronouncing. As a guy who gets his name mispronounced all the time, I'm embarrassed I said Krikorian and not Krikorian. I will...
My mother's mother used to do that all the time too. So you're in good company.
Thank you.